To quote a dear friend of ours, welcome one and all across the nation and around the world. I welcome you all to episode 34 of the Sports Senseis Unleashed. I am one half of your senseis, Drew Willingham, along with this week's special returning sensei. And I would be remiss if I didn't show him right. Introducing a man who needs no introduction, the host of Cole Sports, a show that brings you first-class sports talk, Revelations, a show that changes lives one conversation at a time, and Snowman in the Morning with Cole Johnson, a show that brings you next-level sports and entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, an inspiration to the video-producing wannabes like myself who are just trying to make it out here in these streets. The man, the myth, and the video-producing legend. Give it up for Cole Johnson. Welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, well, thank you for having me back, man. Wow. It's funny when you step back from what you create and you look at things, you look at it with a different pair of eyes. I'm like, wow, I did that? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, brother, this show would not be what it is without you. So thank you very much for your DNA is all over it. You may only have been on here for now the second time, but you are on this show every single week with your work. So thank you very much for everything you do to make this happen.
I'm honored. Thank you, sir.
Hey, anytime. And with that, today we have episode 34 of the Sports Senseis Unleashed, and we have a slate of great topics on us today. And let's start this out with some NBA action there, Cole. And, we've got a great point guard on our hands for this generation when it comes to Stephen Curry. But was he out of line with a little bit of too bold of a comment saying he's the greatest of all time?
Let me think long and hard. Yes. Look, come on, Chef. I love you, man. I do. I think you are one of the greatest point guards of all time. Well, now you could say you're the greatest at one thing. You're the greatest shooter that God's ever created to this point. I will definitely say that there isn't another shooter I have seen ever that has put the ball in the hole like you have.
Yes.
So yeah, shooting, there isn't a question. But in terms of the whole tapestry of what a point guard does, nah. Not saying you can't do it. I've seen you do it. I've seen you run a team, and I've actually said that you were the master of the hockey assist, which for those who don't play hockey, it's the man who sets up the man who gives the dime to the person who scores. So he is the master of that. That is something that he has done that we didn't really see as much from the point guard position. But come on, I mean, John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Gary Payton, Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas, and then there is Irvin Magic Johnson Jr. No, you're not the greatest point guard of all time, sir. No. And I say this with a lot of love for you. I know you're gonna be celebrating number 30. Was it 30? Yeah, no, you'll be celebrating number 36 next year, next March. You're not the greatest. No, sir.
Hey, he's a legend for his era. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the game is different now. And we've gone back and forth with this on other topics, mainly when we talk about bronzexuals and their love for LeBron. But when it comes to this topic right here for Stephen Curry, I will give him the fact that he is a legend in his own right when it comes to this era of basketball. He's definitely done things different behind a three-point line that we're not accustomed to seeing on a regular basis, okay? So he is definitely, at this point, a Hall of Famer in my book. And in your book, I mean, the Golden State would not have the championships that they had. Kevin Durant would not have the championships that he has without this man, Stephen Curry.
That is true.
When it comes to his bold statement of him being the greatest of all time, I'm with Cole. I don't agree with that either because you haven't even finished playing yet. It's the same thing with LeBron. You can't be out here still playing, calling yourself the GOAT. That's us. That's up for us as the critics, the fans to decide when you finally hang him up and retire. You're still playing, so you still have things to do out here. The chances of LeBron getting to Michael Jordan status, very slim to none, but we still acknowledge the fact that he is not on that level. When it comes to Stephen Curry, just like you had mentioned, You've got John Stockton and other legendary point guards that were there before your time that did great things. Now, do they have as many rings as Stephen Curry? No. If any at all with Stockton? No. But
No.
when you think about what they did and their impact on the game, in the type of basketball that was played during their era, it was harder to accomplish those numbers. Nowadays, the game, I will say it for radio airwaves, is more pacified for the NBA airwaves when it comes to the way the game is played nowadays. It's a lot different and a lot easier to attain these numbers that are being attained nowadays. Besides the fact he does have a nasty 3-point range, okay, which not many people today, past, present, future are going to have. He just has a ridiculously wide range of a 3-point range, but that comes from practice, being dedicated to the game, and not saying that he hasn't been dedicated enough to get to that level. I just feel like he still has more to prove, and he still has more time to do it. And I feel like when his career is all said and done at that point, I feel like he will get to that point if he keeps doing what he's doing. But right now, on this day, August 22nd of 2023, I don't believe so.
No. And he did this on Gilbert Arenas' show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Gilbert must be serving his guests that Flint water. I don't understand why. I say this with all the love in my heart. I mean, I don't understand why Chef said it. I don't understand that. I don't. I mean, yes, I know. With the other point guards I named, Oscar only had 1 ring. Zeke only had 2. Kid only has 1 ring. Same thing with Peyton. And of course, unfortunately, Stockton came up 0 for 2. I mean, if you're going to go by rings, sure. But when you go by the greatest, it's more than just rings. Because if that were the case, we wouldn't even be arguing about the greatest of all time basketball-wise. You'd say it's Bill Russell and shut up. But we don't. We don't. And why? Bill Russell has 11 rings. and the only one in this area that comes close is Robert Horry with 7. So,
but no. Look at who Robert Horry played with to get those 7 at the same
2
time.
With the
team. And it wasn't like he wasn't the star of the team either.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Never was a star of the team. 2 with Akeem, 2 with Duncan, 3 with the Shaq Kobe combo. Yeah. But if we were to just say, well, greatest is determined by rings only, fools would actually roll a person like Big Shot Rob up there. In fact, there were some people who were saying, you know what, Big Shot Rob, 7 rings without a defeat in the finals. He's a Hall of Fame. He's worth for the Hall of Fame. I'm like, no, he's not. He's a role player.
Mm-hmm.
He was a role player for the 1st ring, let alone the 7th. No.
Now, he had some great moments throughout those 7 rings because he had to come up clutch in certain moments as a role player. But was he part of the stars? No. And even with Stephen Curry, he had to have KD on there to get 2 of those 4. And he had to have Klay Thompson, who's no slouch, or Draymond Green, who is mainly defensively known, but still made an impact on those teams in order to get those 4 championships that he has.
And that's a great point right there. I mean, Curry didn't do it by himself. I mean, there was a couple of those game 6s, and we didn't have to get to the finals where Klay Thompson's greatness shown. And if it wasn't for that, they'd be eliminated from the playoffs that year. So he's had to deal with the game 6 Clays. He's had to have, like you said, the prowess of Kevin Durant. He has the grit of Draymond Green on defense, so that, let me be really nice. I won't say that Curry is deficient on defense, but because he is considered diminutive, I mean, 6'3" and 200 pounds really isn't diminutive, but in basketball vernacular, they sort of consider it diminutive. People think he's the weakest link on the defense, and Draymond helps them out. So he's had his help to get the 4 rings that he has gotten, but in terms of the greatness therein with him, yeah, Hall of Famer. And if he's not first ballot, somebody is smoking something.
Mm-hmm.
Greatest shooter that I've ever seen on the planet. And I have said this myself for the last 9 years. Like I said, the master of the hockey assist, but greatest point guard ever? No, there's more skill. There's to that. I mean, it's more than just shooting. You had to get the other four guys in the right position. When you got to call the right play for the execution to be flawless. You have to you either have to have great skills in passing the ball, or have great skills in knowing how to free up the person who's going to pass the ball, which the latter Curry does exude. But it's more than just the fact that he can shoot the lights out from three and can score 20 plus points. There's more to a point guard than scoring. And that is really where the bread is buttered with Curry, scoring.
Now you've got LeBron and you've got Curry, who both have 4 championships. I feel like Curry has a really good chance of getting those other 2 more in tying Jordan for 6. That doesn't still make him the greatest of all time. I feel like if he gets those 2, then we can definitely discuss him as the greatest point guard of all time. By that point, his career will be over. We can look at the 3-point, record that he set and everything else that he's accomplished throughout that career. But in this moment, on this day, I just can't give it to him quite yet. But we definitely make some compelling statements when it comes to this statement here. Let's acknowledge the comments we got from the fans so far. We got Melvin Turismo in the house saying, "What's up, fellas?" He says he is a legend, though. So this looks like the time frame was. This is about 10 minutes ago, so this is right when we first started talking about it. So, yeah, we definitely covered all that, Melvin. So I definitely feel like you agree that we touched base on all that.
Yeah, not debating is a legend.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? Says Sick Diggy. Sick is in the house. I'm waiting. See you, man. I'm waiting for one of those wild commercial shout-outs that Sick has. It's going to come at some point during the show.
Not you call for it, you definitely going to come. Oh, Lord.
Bill Russell had 11 rings as a player and 2 more as a coach with the Celtics. Phil Jackson has 2 rings with the Knicks as a player and 11 rings as a coach with the Bulls and Lakers. I mean, that's definitely a true fact right there. But when it comes to the point guard position, they definitely made an impact in the game, but at different positions. But when it comes to this point guard position, we got John Stockton up there who I agree with Cole. John Stockton still, for the era that he played in, regardless of the championships or not, is still a little bit above Steph at this current point.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a point guard does more than just score. A point guard orchestrates everything around you. And at times throughout those championship runs, Steph has had to have others come in to orchestrate other elements of the game.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where they differentiate and where Cole and I are at on this and where we see eye to eye with the fact. That's why we can't put Steph on that level yet. If he gets to that point and they get 2 more rings and he gets to 6, I give it to him.
We can start talking then. Yeah. And by the way, people seem to always forget and gloss over. Stockton is not only the all-time assist leader, he's also the all-time steals leader too.
Yes. And that's a very tough thing to do. And in that era as well.
In that era, right.
Yeah. So many differentials between the 2 styles of play in the eras.
Right.
Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, B.J. Armstrong, Bill Cartwright, Horace Grant, John Paxton, etc. in the first three-peat. Yes, he did. And in the second three-peat, Jordan had Pippen, Kukoc, Bill Wellington, Luke Longley, Steve Kerr, Dennis Rodman, etc. And let's not forget a 42-year-old Robert Parrish at one time.
Did I have Kukoc, however he pronounces his last name, for the first 3? I've heard it both ways. I've heard Kukoc and Kukoc, but I'm like, okay, fine, whichever. But yes, Tony Kukoc was not a member of the Bulls for the first repeat. So yeah, it was only a member of the Bulls for the second.
Yeah, true. And he still didn't get rings anywhere else. So he definitely was lucky to be part of that.
Yeah, he got his 3 rings on all 3 rings of the Bulls. That's correct.
So, and guys, of course, subscribe now and never miss out on new content, whether you're watching here on Sertoba Media, Snowman Multimedia, currently right now at 1:22 p.m. Eastern Time, live on this day. When it comes to Sick Dicky, he says, the Sports Senseis Unleashed is brought to you by Sleazeball Meaty Subs. Don't beat the meat. Don't toss the salad. Just enjoy the subs.
Just go to commercial break.
It is time to go to a commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for tuning in. We'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Don't beat the meat. Don't toss the salad.
Yeah. But hey, that was last year. And what did he was out.
Right. And now he's in.
But he's been out for an entire year. It's not, you can't think he's going to make the same impact that he did before he was suspended.
I'm telling you, he won't have to.
What?
See how
Is he going to keep his phone down and not make bets?
Come
on, man.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Are you ready to upgrade your coffee game? Prepare for an invasion of flavor with Invader Coffee. It's the caffeinated elixir that fuels champions, the blend that pushes boundaries. Whether you're battling deadlines or exploring uncharted territories, Invader Coffee has your back. Join the invasion at invadercoffee.com and taste the difference for yourself. Use the code SNOWMAN for 15% off your first order. Invader Coffee, veteran owned.
Welcome back to a show where we have just as many commercials as a TNT broadcast, the Sports Senseis Unleashed.
I hate you, Joe.
Hey everybody, Snowman here. Looking for the best way to experience live events? Well, SeatGeek has you covered. With just a few taps on your phone, you can find the best seats for concerts, sports, theater, and more. Don't miss out on unforgettable moments. Download the SeatGeek app today and get ready for an experience like no other. Each ticket is vetted for authenticity and ranked on a 1 to 10 scale. And right now, if you sign up and use the code SNOWMAN, you will get $20 off of your first purchase. That's only through the power of SeatGeek, where fans can fan.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a show that still on this day believes that James Harden is a bearded snowflake. We are the Sports Senseis Unleashed.
Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen,
Johnson, and I approve of this message.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from commercial break, and we do have a couple comments we want to reach out to before we get this going. Sensei Drew Willingham and the mad scientist Cole Johnson.
How you doing, Playmaker?
Cole with the response as well, and we also have and Slackjaw VPN for when the slack offline, be slacking, be smooth, says Sick Nicky. Melvin is laughing and says that I read that perfectly when it came to reading that last commercial before we went to that commercial break.
Don't beat that meat and don't toss that salad.
Just enjoy the subs. Actually, Tony Kukoc joined the Bulls after the 92 Olympics. So he was the Bulls during the 92-93 season. Hence, he has 4 rings.
Debut for the Bulls, November 5th, 1993. So, no, he was not on the 93 team. He was on the 94 team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. And hey, Sick, you tried. But Cole, when it comes to the stats, he is the statistician for a reason when it comes to that.
Thank you.
Cole Sports is oh no, I gotta let you read this one.
Cole Sports is proudly brought to you by Silky Smooth Compression Socks. The best sock for getting a little rug.
And this.
And Funky Soul Karaoke. Anytime is the best time to break out in song.
And I gotta let you do this, would you?
Oh. And Drew Willingham is proudly brought to you by Peanut Butter and Jealous. Now available in grapefruit and black cherry jelly.
In a store near you. Thank you, Sick. That was great. Guys, we're gonna take this into the next segment. And when it comes to Major League Baseball, Angel Hernandez deserves the current heat on him for egregious strike calls during the Braves and Giants game recently. How do you feel about this one?
I've always felt a way about umpires who, especially when they get a chance to be at home plate, they feel as though they are bigger than the game. And my feeling with this guy for the longest time has been he just feels as though he's bigger than the game. And when I see umpires like this, they take away from not necessarily the integrity of it. They take away from the enjoyment of it. And look, I think I can speak for Drew when I say this. We don't go to the ballparks to see umpires call balls or strikes. Now, we pray that once you do it in a fair way where you don't call things that are 2 miles outside the strike zone a strike and things that are right down the middle of the plate a ball. Now, we're praying that you don't do that. But if you just take care of your job, you're good. But it is individuals like you, Mr. Hernandez, individuals like you, that we now have a pitch clock, and we probably will have a strike zone that we wouldn't need to have a human being to adjudicate which is a ball and a strike because of your utter ineptitude.
You couldn't have said it any better, Cole, because we've been a part of a wild ride this year, including myself, and things I've experienced in life. And part of what had kept me going after all that was being part of this baseball team that I've been talking about, as a coach, more so as a coach this year because of everything aforementioned. And we get to the playoffs, we get to the semifinals. We're up 2-0 in the best of 5 game series to go to the next round. I only had to win one more. And and all of a sudden after the first 2 games, a different umpiring crew comes in and calls it completely different. So it's like you're going there and you are the team facing another team, but in between all that, you're also battling the umpire, which is like it was like playing a different type of game. It's like it wasn't based, and when you get to moments like this, and when I saw this in these highlights, it was like PTSD from what I experienced just a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Literally like 10 days ago. Yeah, I'm experiencing this because it was a week from Saturday when this all happened. So when I'm going through all this, and then we fast forward to this is the Angel Hernandez stuff happened like a week after. When you see that, when you have an umpire that wants to be in such command of the game to where he affects the outcome of the game, and of course, balls or strikes are going to affect the outcome of the game if you're just watching them go by. But
Right.
if you're watching them go by because it's a ball and he's calling them a strike and just doing it egregiously, or vice versa, to tip one side or the other, that's not baseball. And from what we experience, when it looks like in our league, because it's not like it's a semi-pro league, but it's not like major league, so it's a little bit off the cuff. When you think about umpires getting paid on the side potentially to call certain things certain ways to go for one team or the other, to sway one side or the other, that stuff happens. We think about Tim Donaghy for NBA and making the bets and all the stuff that he did and getting paid off and stuff like that. There are more shady umpires and officials out there than we're aware of. And this has been going on for years. And, but we can't prove when it happened except for when it's been made obvious and we've seen it. Who's to say that Angel Hernandez isn't part of that group? And I'm not saying definitely. I'm just speculating. So, don't take this as slander, but I'm just saying, could this potentially be a sign that they need to investigate this to see that this is potentially part of what's going on?
Yeah. And look, don't take Drew's and my word for Angel Hernandez's I don't know, malfeasance, I guess. There's many others in Major League Baseball itself that say this. Take, for example, second baseman of the Tigers, Ian Kinsler. And he was fined $10,000 for saying what I was about to say. But he said that Hernandez was a bad umpire who, quote, needs to find another job, close quote. How about Hall of Famer Pedro Martinez? He said after one game, I think this was about 5 years ago when he started to become an analyst, quote, Angel was horrible. Don't get me going on Angel now. Major League Baseball needs to do something about Angel. It doesn't matter how many times he sues Major League Baseball. He's as bad as there is, close quote. And then I'm thinking it sometime in the future Hall of Famer CC Sabathia. He said, quote, I don't understand why he's doing these games. He's always bad. He's a bad umpire. Close quote. So you have 3 different accounts from 3 different major leaguers who's looked at this guy, and it says this dude does not belong on a diamond. And when you actually have those types of ringing endorsements about your services, that should tell you something. And he feels so affronted that he keeps wanting to throw lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit at MLB for discrimination. No, sir. They're not discriminating you because you're Cuban. They discriminate against you simply because you just simply do not know how to really, how can I say this in a way that I really would like to say it? You don't know how to be a judge on an athletic field. And that is what you get paid for. You are lousy in doing it.
Because your strike zone, a strike zone has a universal language. Anybody can speak whatever they want in a strike zone in baseball, as long as you know the game is a universal language. Okay, usually from the letters to the belt. Okay, in a lot of cases,
Right.
Sometimes they go for the knees, depending on what your stance is like. It just it adjusts depending on the type of batter, the height, the stance. All that plays a factor in the usual umpire strike zone. But if you have an umpire that has his own strike zone in his head, which isn't consistent, which makes absolutely no sense, then of course you're going to get called out for it, because again, you can speak whatever language, you can be from wherever you want. None of that matters except for the language of the strike zone, which you can communicate that by a ball or a strike. And that's how it is, regardless of what you speak. It is not about what you are as a nationality. It's about who you are as a person and an official. And you could be part of those lousy umpires that is making a few extra bucks on the side just to call it one way or another. And I'm just saying that's not 100% proven. So don't take it as slanderous. I'm just saying this man should be investigated for it. If what Cole is saying, and I've seen it too, and I've heard this guy's name more in a negative light because you usually don't hear about umpires in the news. But I've heard this guy's name, Angel Hernandez, more over the years. Ridiculous. And you usually don't hear about officials, again, unless they are making bad calls and they're just terrible and they got a bad rapport. And it's at this point now in 2023, if it's been going on this long, and you've got Hall of Famers on radio airwaves, national TV, saying how terrible this guy is as an official, you got to let him go. He's making a mockery of the game, just like the example I threw at you for our backwoods baseball league that we have going on. So,
I mean, it's getting to the point now where if we were to have baseball players who played in the 80s and in the 90s, and they saw Angel Hernandez umpire, they'd probably say, we would actually want Eric Gregg to call our games. And he had a checkered understanding of balls and strikes himself. But they would rather him be an umpire than Mr. Hernandez. And it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. It is like what the hoodie says. Do your job. That's really all you need to do. Do your job. And unfortunately, there's been many different instances where you haven't done your job the way you're supposed to do it. But if I were as blessed as you in screwing up so many games, it's not even funny, but still have my job, man, I'd be thanking my employer right now for just glossing over and overlooking all of my egregious errors too. But you don't do that with MLB because you want to have a contentious relationship with them. Grow up.
Lucky to have a job right now. Like,
exactly.
You want to keep fighting the law. Well, the law is going to win at some point if you keep going against it. And especially, if you were standing up to the law that actually made sense, then we would give you something here. But there's nothing anywhere close to that within this argument when it comes to this man, Angel Hernandez, and his rapport that he's had within the league, the players, the managers, the owners, the other officials within the game. How do you still have a job at this point?
That is, to borrow a term from a game show, that is the $64,000 question.
I mean, someone needs to bring this man in here just to say this.
You're fired.
Followed by this.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Because it's getting wild out here in these streets when it comes to how this man is calling these games. Oh!
Yeah! Yeah!
Absolutely.
Let me talk to you.
Let me talk to you.
At
Man,
the
I
hip.
love Eli / LA Knight. I'm sorry.
LA Knight is rocking it out here in WWE, and he's pushing 40, but better late than never, because he's definitely had a great talent out there when he was with Impact with these clips. Well, actually, this one was the NWA.
That's NWA.
Yeah, NWA one. That really small studio show that they made or whatnot. That's what that one was for. But looks like we got a couple comments to go through. Do the MLB umpires have a union?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yes, they do have a union.
That's probably what's saving them. It's just like UPS.
I think that is what's saving them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, not
Stephen Curry is bugging. He needs to stay off the liquor, says Michael 3000. Apparently, Michael 3000 is not related to David 3000, but he definitely he may be onto something there. Who knows, Michael 3000? Thank you for the comment there. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. But yeah, do the MLB umpires have a union? Yes, they do. Sick, they definitely do, and that's probably the only thing that is saving that man from losing his job. And Ryan McCarthy's in the house saying, awaiting instructions, Sensei. Well, the instructions are to sit back, relax, enjoy the other 25 minutes of this show, because we have some great things coming to you But looks like we got a couple more comments. So shouldn't the umpires union clean this mess in-house? Yeah, but why has this been going on in the public for decades now, is for what it feels like? Because you got Pedro Martinez and other ones of the past, along with the present, speaking up on how this man sucks.
And to me, that's a ringing endorsement as to, or she said that's testimony and evidence as to him needing to no longer be an umpire. And now he's in his 60s. What use do they have with him now anyway? I mean, he's going to be in retirement age and come 2027. I mean, you might as well just let him go early. He's all about headlines more than he is about getting the job done and being considered one of the most esteemed members of umpiring, even with players and managers. You might as well let this character go. Just let him walk.
Yeah, I do not disagree with you whatsoever when it comes to that. Angel Hernandez is making egregious calls. Must be a day that ends in Y. Yes, absolutely. And Sick Diggy comes back with yes. Bing. Face it, the MLB management doesn't have a set. Yeah. I mean,
well, that's true. I mean, look, Major Baseball, in terms of the players' end, they do have the most powerful union. So, yeah, the owners, they do lack a little bit on the cojones side. Yeah, that might be true.
Yep, and this one is definitely true too. And an early retirement would be the solution. Don't expect him in the Hall of Fame. Oh, he is definitely not getting in the Hall of Fame, and I think he knows it, which is why he's making these egregious calls the way he is.
I think so too.
That could play a part of that and as well. Guys, thank you so much for the comments so far, and keep them coming. We'll keep acknowledging them as we keep on going throughout this show. We're going to take one last commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of NFL training camp preseason action, as well as some historic moments that happen on these days this week. Stay tuned for the Sports Sensei's Unleashed. Yeah. But hey, that was last year. And what did he was out.
Right. And now he's in.
But he's been out for an entire year. It's not, you can't think he's going to make the same impact that he did before he was suspended.
I'm telling you, he won't have to.
What?
See how I
Is he going to keep his phone down and not make bets?
Come
on, man.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Are you ready to upgrade your coffee game? Prepare for an invasion of flavor with Invader Coffee. It's the caffeinated elixir that fuels champions, the blend that pushes boundaries. Whether you're battling deadlines or exploring uncharted territories, Invader Coffee has your back. Join the invasion at invadercoffee.com and taste the difference for yourself. Use the code SNOWMAN for 15% off your first order. Invader Coffee, veteran owned.
Welcome back to a show where we have just as many commercials as a TNT broadcast, the Sports Sensei's Unleashed.
I hate you, Joe.
Everybody, Snowman here. Looking for the best way to experience live events? Well, SeatGeek has you covered. With just a few taps on your phone, you can find the best seats for concerts, sports, theater, and more. Don't miss out on unforgettable moments. Download the SeatGeek app today and get ready for an experience like no other. Each ticket is vetted for authenticity and ranked on a 1 to 10 scale. And right now, if you sign up and use the code SNOWMAN, you will get $20 off of your first purchase. That's only through the power of SeatGeek, where fans can fan.
Take it away, Cole.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a show that has all the Asian motifs known to man, but it's all American. Welcome back to the Sports Sensei's Unleashed.
And we are rocking and rolling. And even during that commercial break, I fixed the background so you can see Invader Coffee and SeatGeek while the rolling marquee goes through. Guys, welcome back to episode 34 of the Sports Sensei's Unleashed. And we got a couple comments during that commercial break. Six says, this need of a... Oh, no, read it. You got to read this one. You got to do this one.
This need of a palate cleanser is brought to you by Yuckmouth Dental Insurance. Either keep it minty fresh or keep it shut. Yuckmouth Dental Insurance.
And
Southern Fried Chimkin. Brand new, sweet and sour, as well as their new extra crispy.
I had to let Cole do those once. Guys, thank you so much. Subscribe now and never miss out on new content. Looks like even Melvin said, when is the next in or out, Drew? Tonight is the next one, as we are celebrating 100 episodes I reached a couple weeks ago. Tonight, when we take this comment down, is episode 71 through 80. I will be live as I showcase the highlights of those shows, and in between each highlight of the episode, we will discuss them with the comments like we have been since episodes 1 through 10 last week. So guys, thank you very much for tuning into that. Melvin, thank you so much for asking. We'll be wrapping that up next week when we go through episodes 100, and then we'll be back the following week with brand new content to start up with 101. And next week, we'll also be debuting my Commanders show as well to discuss the Commanders. And speaking of the Commanders, it's going to be like a little 30-minute show, nothing major, but, talk a little bit of Commanders action or whatnot.
But time you talk about your team.
Yeah, you got time. It's going to be called the Commanders Gridiron Report. So that's I've been working on stuff like that. I wanted to showcase all of those episodes for the In or Out Sports Debate, because 100's a pretty monumental number, and especially for the type of show that is. I wanted to showcase everybody, because everybody that's been a part of those episodes, like yourself, have helped make it what it is. I couldn't do it alone, so I appreciate you guys. That's why I wanted to celebrate the highlights. And
thank you for making a platform like that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope to get you back on soon, because we are now in the 100s. It's time to bring you back for this second appearance.
Good question.
But with that, speaking of football, let's take this into some NFL action right quick. And, Cole, based on what we've seen in the NFL preseason, training camp, and just overall for the whole scope of the 32 teams in the NFL, give us a brief synopsis of what your thoughts are based on what you've seen so far in preseason.
Well, I think when I'm in terms of a whole totality, I think what I am going to be seeing, or I think what we all going to be seeing in the near future, is when the next collective bargaining agreement comes, you're going to be seeing the NFLPA, the weakest labor organization in all the sports, try to drum up enough nuts to come to the table and say, okay, these running backs need to be paid more, and we are breaking our necks along with our knees, along with our other body parts in preseason, just to get the preseason slate over with. If you want more games, then it should be more regular season games. I think we are leaning toward those two things, because those are the two things that are screaming the loudest at me, at least. that I think we're going to be seeing in the near future.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as that goes, when it comes to the contracts, yeah, I think we're going to see a spike when it comes to that, when it comes to those running backs. But is there anybody in their style of play throughout the past couple of weeks that has impressed you? Rookies, veterans, ways that have said this guy's going to have a pretty good season ahead.
No, I take that back. Jalen Carter.
Okay.
I saw him take the field, and of course, this is a couple weeks back when I saw him take the field. And yes, I know this was the first preseason game. This is against the Ravens in M&T Bank Stadium. When I saw him take the field and he clowned one of the interior offensive linemen, I said, whoa! I was like, okay, the Eagles are going to be an absolute problem because they're going to be rotating him and the man-child known as Jordan Davis in that middle interior. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, that's going to be sick. In terms of positive, that is what has been earmarked as gold standard. I could say Justin Fields. I mean, because he did have a game where he threw 3 for 3, 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of them to see if I can get this correct. DJ Moore. Thank you, Snowman. Yeah. I could say that impressed me, but it didn't. Because I'm like, okay, this should be the progression for him necessary. But really, no one other than Jalen Carter has really stood out and said, oh, wow, I need to take another look at this guy. Now, there have been some good performances, obviously, but none that's really was like, oh, my gosh, yes. Now, the one performer that has stood out to me, period, though, has been Trey Lance. The 49ers really want to get rid of you, sir.
Yes.
Very possible.
Mm-hmm.
You can luck up into a touchdown and you actually throw it into the breadbasket of a secondary member. But he just simply didn't have the hands that God gave him. Like, oh gosh, your time should be near and gone.
There's been some moments throughout the preseason that have really stuck out with me, and most notably last night, actually, as my former.
Talk about the Ravens getting their preseason win streak broken at the hands of your Commanders.
24 games, Cole. 24 straight games that this team, the Ravens, have won in the preseason, which, of course, doesn't really mean anything because it's not during the season, doesn't impact the playoffs or anything. It's just practice, scrimmage time, pretty much. But, hey, the commies, formerly known as the REDSKINS, the slur is what Cole says. When we talk about this team right here, oh, they slurred it on up, came on up in there, in their house, at FedEx Field, poopy water on the fans and all, coming down and everything. No, they don't have poopy water anymore, but they did it one time when Dan Snyder was the poopy owner. Things have changed in FedEx Field. Oh, it's different. And you saw it yesterday when they won 29-28. And I've been speaking very highly of Sam Howell. And Kyle Nash was to come up on my show, the In or Out Sports Debate, and talk about, oh, how well will he play? Oh, he played damn well last night when it came to how he played against the Ravens. Because you think about his stats, Cole. You think about his stats. He went 19 for 25. Only had 6 missed passes within 25 attempts. Had 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not 1, but 2. 0 interceptions. Again, not 1, but 2 touchdowns. 0 interceptions. Why? Because he's going to play great this year. And when you watch him throw on those completions, on those 19-25 completions, he had darts he was throwing. He was throwing darts. It looked like what Brett Favre would have looked like if he studied the playbook and didn't have to run around and just make plays up. It looked like what he could have been, even though Brett Favre was a legend and a Hall of Famer. He was not as smart and as young talented as Sam Howell is showing. And Sam Howell will play how well this season, and he will play very well, and I'm seeing it right now during preseason.
Now, for those who are unaware, I I co-host a show called Mentality with Wisehead Hefe, and he was guest number 99 on in our out. And ever since his appearance on your wonderful award-winning show, sir,
It should be an award-winning show. Should.
I kept hearing how disrespectful you were when you, as as a fan of the Slur. Well, I can't say that now because that's not what they're called. As a Commanders fan, said that the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants, would start the 2023 season 1 up and 7 down. He has been belly aching ever since when you said that. And I'm like, oh Lord. I was like, look, take with a grain of salt. You're on a show with a guy who is a divisional rival of your team. What would you expect him to say? That they would actually be 7-1? No, I wouldn't expect him to say that. I would expect him to say 1-7. I would actually say, okay, cool. I'm glad. I'm glad it's 1-7. But he did say that even though your team has turned it around from not having Daniel Snyder on it, that they still should be called Days of Our Lives. And he says Days of Our Lives simply because the fact that Ron Rivera is feeling the seat being so warm that he's jumping up out of it because he sees his future in Eric Bieniemy replacing him soon. And he says that he doesn't really believe that Sam Howell will take the Commanders to the promised land. And I think he predicted 0-8.
He did, and it's all out of pure pettiness. It's all out of being pure petty because he does not see what I see, and he's going to be unpleasantly surprised when he sees that team go 1-7 to start the first 8 games of their season this year for the Giants. And I'm sorry, Wise, I was not smoking anything on that day, but before or after, maybe, but not on that particular day. And I did so just to make sure that what I said made sense when it comes to this topic of being 1-7 for the Giants, Sartoba.
Oh my gosh. That was one of the funniest things I think I've ever
heard. Let's keep it going to one more segment before we get on out of here. We've been talking about, in the past few weeks, I'd like to bring this up to reminisce on the history, and we're going to narrow it down today to just 2 days for our live date right now, and also tomorrow when we're on WQEE. August 22nd, August 23rd, the most notable things that happen on these days in sports history. Okay. And in 1927, I feel like this is pretty notable because it was in 1927. New York Yankees slugger Babe Ruth on this day hits 40th home run during his MLB record 60 home run season and New York's 9-4 loss to the Cleveland Indians at Dunn Field. I find that pretty remarkable considering it's August 22nd. He hit 20 more home runs, and the season of 1927 didn't go as long as it did now. Right. So you're telling me he hit like 20 more home runs in the next 3 weeks?
The fact that he hit 60 homers in 154 games is remarkable to me.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me. Yeah. Seriously, Babe Ruth. And look, I have a huge amount of respect for Barry Bonds. Yes, I know the cream, the clear. Yes, I get it. Balco, understood. I still have a lot of respect for Bonds and Henry Aaron. Babe Ruth is the greatest slugger that's ever played the game. Still, even now, 1 full century later, he is still the greatest slugger ever.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing. It's amazing what he did.
Shohei Ohtani's doing some similar things with being able to pitch and do what he does at the plate as well. We could be seeing the modern era Babe Ruth, but for someone to sling back a 12-pack of beer and eat a bunch of hot dogs, go out in the field and do what he did before the designated hitter was even existing in Major League Baseball. You got to look at what he did in that era is definitely remarkable, and especially for as out of shape as he was.
Right.
On the same date of August 22nd, 1950, Althea Gibson becomes the first black competitor in a U.S. national tennis competition in 1950. Very, very historic on that day.
You know what's messed up about her? I didn't hear about her when growing up. I didn't hear about her until I was, I think, 11 or 12. So when you come up in a household like mine, you heard about Muhammad Ali and Henry Aaron and Sugar Ray Robinson, Ann Leonard, and then on the female side, you heard Wilma Rudolph. But I did not hear about Althea Gibson until I was in junior high school. And that was because it was funny that people never talked about tennis.
That's what it was. And she played a different sport and was the first
Yeah.
to do that. Then you would have heard more about it. But tennis just wasn't as hyped up back then.
Right.
It
And
was like John McEnroe was what really made it popular in the 80s.
right. Yeah. And to your point, when I found about Althea Gibson, that was around the same time I found about Arthur Ashe. But yes, Althea Gibson is one of the pioneers of sport, and we need to actually say that more often about her.
We talked about Babe Ruth on the same date hitting 40 home runs to get to where he was at in that season, to hit 60 home runs. On the same day in 1961, New York Yankee Roger Maris hits his 50th of 61 home runs that year. So in a year where they had just started going to 162 games, and he hit the 61 home runs, there was controversy with that because he had more games to do it. But look at the date. On the same date, Babe Ruth only had 40 home runs on that date. And Roger Maris had 10 more home runs than him on the same date in 1961. It goes to show you that regardless of, he had 8 more games to do it, he was 10 home runs ahead of his pace on that same date.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I felt he got cheated so hard. It was like, and I really feel as though the populace wanted to have, they wanted to have Mickey Mantle break that record. And when it wasn't him, and it was this, who is this Roger Maris guy type of thing, he got all the slander. And then to put the cherry on top of the dung sundae, they slap an asterisk on his 61. And I felt bad about him, but I feel really good about him. Unfortunately, I feel horrible about his son, because that idiot had the audacity last year when Aaron Judge hit his 60-second homer to break the American League record. His son had the nerve to say, quote, "The real home run king," close quote, is Aaron Judge. Roger Maris Jr., shut up. Oh, I'm sorry. You should know your role, and you should shut your mouth.
In the words of a legend,
You should know your role and shut your mouth.
next accomplishment on this date, 1989. Let's see if you remember this thing that happened in 1989 there, Cole. Nolan Ryan strikes out his 5,000th batter. Do you remember who that was on this date?
Oh, yes, I remember. And I was staying with my grandmother at the time. So August 22nd, I think I was at last week. I was with my grandmother before I went back home to Houston. She lived in New Orleans. The 5,000 strikeout victim was Ricky Henderson.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 5,000 strikeouts for Nolan Ryan. He accomplished in 1989. Definitely, there's been no other like that, man, as he was one of the true Ironmen of the game of baseball, especially
got a chance to see him live when he was with the Astros. Loved it. Loved every single second. Yes. My favorite pitcher of all time is Ryan. Oh, God, I love Nolan Ryan.
And for your team, and while you were there too, that makes it even more special. So that's in Texas, Texas has done some great things in sports. And in 2007, let's see if you remember this one. Texas Rangers rout the Baltimore Orioles 30-3 for the most runs scored by a team in modern MLB history on the same date, August 22nd.
I somewhat remember that.
It's not as notable as Ryan's.
Yeah, I somewhat remember that. I'm going to be completely forthright. This was probably around the time in my life I wasn't following baseball. I wasn't really following sports as hard as I do now, period. But I definitely wasn't following baseball as much. But I do remember that day. I do remember that day. I do remember that game. And yeah, having the Cowboys score that many runs on the Colts or the Ravens. The Rangers scored that many runs on the Orioles. Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, it definitely was 30-3. You got mollywop, bro.
They
Now,
at least allowed the Orioles to kick a field goal. I'm sorry, wrong sport, my bad.
we're gonna keep this going because just for a little bit longer, because now we gotta do our version for WQEE. The last part will be edited out for the radio airwaves for tomorrow. But for our listeners on WQEE on this day, August 23rd, 2023, the things that happen in history when it comes to sports moments. In 1936, 17-year-old Cleveland Indians future Baseball Hall of Famer Bob Feller's debut MLB game strikes out 15 St. Louis Browns in a 4-1 win at League Park in Cleveland. Bob Feller.
My father did talk a little bit about Bob Feller. My father loved pitchers, and it didn't matter what type of pitcher it was. It didn't matter if he pitched left or right, 3/4 sidearm or overhand. He loved pitchers, and I think he had an affinity for aces. So, of course, Bob Feller is probably one of the most well-known aces of a staff. So, yeah, he talked about him. I won't say a lot, but he did talk about him a good chunk. And yeah, I had to study a little bit on him. And yeah, he was impressive. He's impressive, and yeah, what a debut!
Yeah, it definitely was a hell of a debut. And when you think of 6 years later, the great Bambino, retired in like 1934, 1935, somewhere in there. But 7 years later, in 1942, for some pregame festivities, Babe Ruth allows Walter Johnson to pitch to him in a pregame attraction that draws 69,000 fans for the New York-Washington MLB doubleheader at Yankee Stadium, raises $80,000 for the Army-Navy relief in 1942. That's a lot of fans and a lot of money at that time.
Let me tell you how important that is. If I were to bring it up to today's times, well, maybe not today's times. I'll bring it up to maybe 2002, 2003 times. That's like Roger Clemens pitching to Barry Bonds. Because Walter Johnson was a fireballer. That dude threw some heat, and he struck out on many a batter. And the reason why I know that is I had to study up on him, because when Nolan Ryan surpassed him, I said, "Who's this Walter Johnson guy?" And yeah, he was an awesome pitcher. And for him to actually do that with Babe Ruth, wow, that's awesome. And then it was for a great cause to boot. Nice.
And it was like, it was when Babe Ruth was like 46, 47 years old, already been retired out of the game for like 6 or 7 years at that point. And got, he was only alive for another 6 years after that. So when you think about just the span of time and when that all took place, and for Babe to be 46, 47 years old, going out there against Walter Johnson, that's some pretty cool stuff out there. If something that happened at that point, I wish we did have a DeLorean to go back in time just to see that for a few minutes. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be.
On the same date, August 23rd, 1947, first baseball Little League World Series, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. The Maynard Midgets beat the Lock Haven All-Stars 16-7 for the first ever Little League World Series in Williamsport.
Not the Midgets.
Yeah.
So I guess they did not have Danny Almonte on their team then.
Ooh, how old was he again? Like 17?
16, 17, some ridiculous number. I'm like, come on. Yes, the managers of that team, the managers and the coaches of that team should have been admonished for that. But it's funny how you think certain things won't catch on, and they somehow do because of many different factors, one of which you're seeing a sport you love, another of which you're seeing children do it. It now has become a thing to where this little small window in the middle of the summer in a place we don't hear of for the rest of the year, that's in the middle of Pennsylvania. They hold this I guess you could say round robin tournament. And they hold it, and we all get caught up in it, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see these children from what 11 to 13 get to play this sport, and it's a thrill, and it's great to see. It's great to hear about the beginning of it, because I always like to see, okay, when did this begin and how long has this been a tradition? And it's great to know it has been going on for now, 75 years. Whew, man.
75 years, a long time that we have seen the Little League World Series here in Williamsport. Definitely been something to behold each and every summer. We get to check that out. And speaking of baseball, but back into major leagues, in 1970 on this date, Roberto Clemente compiles his record second straight 5-hit game for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
You know, I worked with and for a manager who is a huge, well, she's huge Yinzer, period, anything. So Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, if it has Pittsburgh on it, she'll go ape, you know what about it. So every year she makes it a point to visit the Roberto Clemente museum that's in Pittsburgh. And she loves it every time. And she gets the same type of enjoyment every time she visits the museum. And mind you, she lives about 90 minutes away from Pittsburgh, so this is a good trek. But she enjoys doing it at least one. She takes at least one weekend every summer to do it. And he has made a huge impact in the Pittsburgh community. And he died far too soon. Far too soon. He
did.
But he was one of the greatest humanitarians that has ever existed as an athlete. And so it's great to know that a guy like him existed in any sports endeavor, let alone Major League Baseball.
Absolutely. He's definitely his loss was definitely felt by so many people when he ultimately passed away, unfortunately. And, you know, moving on to in the 80s, in 1988, Mike Tyson and Mitch Green brawl at 4 a.m. in Harlem. What was up with that there, Cole, in 1988?
So Tyson, okay, so you have to understand, by then Tyson was already stamped the baddest man on the planet, because 2 months before he put Michael Spinks to sleep after 91 seconds.
Just not on his face yet. He wasn't stamped on his face yet.
No, yeah, it did, but yeah, and at the same time did not have a tattoo on his face, right? So around that time, you had a lot of people, me being one, who really loved watching him box. Loved it. And he had many fans, but you also had many detractors. Mitch Green happened to be one of them. So he's coming up into the boxing realm. He decides that he wants to test his gangster, as they say, with Tyson. Tyson wanted that gangster to be tested. And the next thing you know, that brawl and that incident made Steve Harvey a famous comedian. Because that was a joke he told at Showtime the Apollo when he was a struggling comedian in around, I think it was around that same time, like 1988, 1980, like early 1989, where he basically said, now I told this fool that he should not even ask Mike Tyson to fight, but this fool had the nerve to just simply talk. Oh no, the punch is good. Oh God, that was hilarious. That was a hilarious bit. But yes, when I think of the Mike Tyson, Mike Green brawl, I think, wow, we got Steve Harvey out of the deal.
Hey, it was a great trade-off for us to have Steve Harvey and what he's done.
Yeah.
Especially since then. And 1 year later, on the anniversary of that incident, the LA Dodgers beat the Montreal Expos 1-0 8-0 in 22 innings on Rick Dempsey's home run. What are your thoughts on that? 22 innings.
Those were the days I tried to follow every single game I could. And when I mean that, when I say that, I mean I tried to follow it via a newspaper. So I would open a newspaper. I see the box scores of every game. And I remember the very next day, I tried to find what that game was. Of course, back then, when those games went far past when the paper printed for the next morning, it would say late. I was like, okay, so this game said late, so wow, it must have gone real late. So I had to look at the next day. So of course, the next day, they would have that box score, and I said, this game went 22 innings, and they didn't score a run for 21 of those. How is that possible? Gosh. Wow.
You played 2.5 games.
You played 2.5 games, and neither team scored a run. I'm like, how is that possible?
You're terrible. It took a notable person like Rick Dempsey to hit the home run to get the one run in. So,
thank you for putting all of us out of our misery, and especially the Expos and the Dodgers. I'm like, geez, 21 innings and neither team scored a run. I'm like, doggone,
it was wild. 3 years later, on that anniversary of that date, Dennis Eckersley, who previously set for most consecutive saves at 40, is the first pitcher to record 40 saves in 4 different seasons. That's a lot of saves.
It is a lot of saves. And it's funny that people forget that he started up being a starting pitcher, and he struggled. He would have some starts where it was okay, and then he had these other starts where he would get bombed. And then thank you, Tom La Russa, for seeing the possibility of Tony La Russa, I'm sorry, for seeing the possibility of Dave Eckersley to be a closer. And when he got to the A's, he got turned into a closer, and man, it was awesome. It was awesome. And it was great to see him deal, because you knew pretty much when it was the bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth and he was on the hill for the A's, at least, it was over. Only a slight scant few occasions where that wasn't the case, but for the most part, that he was the forerunner to Mariano Rivera.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. And there's only one more thing I want to bring up that was notable on this date of August 23rd, 2023. And in 1993, for the Atlanta Braves, Fred McGriff and David Justice are the 6th to hit back-to-back home runs twice in the same game. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I was stationed in Fort Bragg at the time, and all right, so the best way I could describe it, that area, you had to be, and this was before the Carolina Panthers. They had actually announced the Carolina Panthers was going to be a thing, but they weren't a team yet.
Till 95, yeah.
Till 95, right. But they already made the announcement the year before. So with football, you either had to be a Falcons or the Slur fan. North Carolina, they lean more toward Washington. So you had to be one of those two. In basketball, good luck. It was basically North Carolina or Duke. When it came to the NBA, it was Michael Jordan. We didn't give a crap what team he played on, but it just happened to be the Bulls. That's how North Carolinians thought. And when it came to baseball, it seemed to be a no-brainer for that area. It was all about the Braves. And of course, there was no Nationals at the time, but it was just all about the Braves. So they would actually have nightly updates in North Carolina about the Braves. And I remember this 11 p.m. update where they actually talked about that game where McGriff and Justice hit back-to-back homers twice in the same game. It was great to watch. And then the very next day, every baseball fan that wore uniform, and when I mean uniform, I mean Army uniform, would say, "Yeah, did you see that Braves game last night? Man, I mean, the next day, that's all they talked about ad nauseum." And it was to the point where I almost got turned off being a Braves fan if I ever tried to be one.
Well, luckily I was 6 at the time, so I wasn't turned off by it because I don't even recall the moment happening until I saw the stat and looked at the highlight of the moment. So, but no, I mean, I could definitely see if that was a time frame like today, and if everybody was just like overly talking about it.
Mhm.
Kind of like that fight that happened at second base a few weeks back. You know, that was kind of overly talked about there. We can go to that point, but you know, those
10 minutes and goodness gracious.
you know, those were some great things we talked about here on these dates in history of sports. And you know, before we get on out of here, Cole, let's talk about our closing thoughts. And I'll let you go first. You know, just about everything we talked about on the show or the sports in general, just similar to the in or out sports debate. What is your final word, but closing thoughts on the Sports Senseis Unleashed?
Okay. We now are coming upon the precipice of the 2023 NFL season. And yes, I could talk about Major League Baseball winding itself down, and the Astros are only a game and a half out of the AL West lead, but they're only a half game ahead of the Mariners, who are the hottest team in the AL at the moment. I could talk about how the Rockets are such a moribund franchise that I have a niece and a nephew that are older than the whole squad. But around this time, I normally get giddy and excited about the NFL coming into its regular season. And now we're at the stage where we'll see the last games of the preseason be played on a Thursday or Friday night, and we'll bore ourselves to tears because we'll see third and fourth stringers play from the middle of the first quarter on for the only time of the year, unless they get a chance to play for injured people. But I always get giddy. I always get excited because the best sport still to this moment right now to watch is football. And it's great. I get excited. I get pumped. But I also feel as though I feel filled up with prayer too, because I want to make sure that the players who step out in the field, they're healthy, they do not suffer any big time injury, and that they do understand the risks that involves being a football player, but the joy that they have, I hope they could see that they are channeling so many of us who would like to be in their spot. And to the greatest game to me that's ever been created in football, I'm glad that you're back, because I am so sick and tired of hearing yet another day of who's better, LeBron James or Michael Jordan. The doggone thing does not have an off season.
And that's where Cole comes in and says this.
Would you please shut the hell up?
Yes. 1000%. Oh my gosh.
Well, Cole, has definitely been a great episode having you on here for 34. And
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome, brother. And I'm going to take this into my closing thoughts, piggyback a little bit on what Cole just said when it comes to the NFL and when it comes to where I was at earlier in my animation.
Let me talk to you.
Because you haven't seen anything yet, I am back with the animations as we talk about NFL preseason action, baby.
Yeah.
To my team, formerly known as the REDSKINS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. When it comes to how they played last night, when it comes to Sam Howell, 19 of 25, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, not 1, but 2, 0 interceptions. He played great. out there. Now, I know we are not going to sit up here already in August and try to have this conversation yet.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
But when it comes to the 2023 season, they are ready for this.
Let's get ready to rumble!
They will not go 0-8, Wiesel Hefe. They will not go 1-7 like your team, the Giants. They may go 2-6. I don't know. But at the end of the day, they are going to start it out better than 0-8. And they are not going to start it out 2-6 because that's horrible. They are at least going to be 4-4 the first 8 games. And at the end of the day, you will look me in my eyes and do this.
Acknowledge me.
Because we are going to sit back and talk about this at the midway point of the season. And I know some of you out there,
You can't handle the truth.
but I can. And I know the truth is not 0-8, as well as the fact that everybody out there is probably saying that
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
I'm trying to do it right now by telling you they are not going to go 0-8, even though you're out here saying this.
Hell to the no, to the no, no, no. Hell no, to the no.
Absolute.
What?
Said absolute.
What?
I can't tell you how many times out here they are not going 0-8, Wiesel Hefe.
What?
Because at the end of the day, there's not enough of this that will prevent it from happening.
But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We talking about practice, man. We talking about practice. We talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena and you see me play, don't you?
Absolutely.
You see me give everything I got, right?
Absolutely.
But we talking about practice, right?
Yippee-ki-yay,
Absolutely. I cannot tell you enough. No 0-8s, no 1-7s, no 2-6, and no slurs. No slurs at all. I heard you whisper it.
Would you please shut the hell up?
Because when it comes to the Washington Commies, the Commanders, the slur, the formerly known as the Redskins, they're going to stand above the Giants this year and say this.
You may claim to be the best in the world, but I'm better than you. And you know it.
Absolutely.
Damn!
Some of y'all out there probably saying that.
Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
But you know what I'm saying?
That's terrible.
Absolutely. Now, come on now. Let's all get on the same page. They are not going to be 0-8. I cannot go with my rant enough because we don't have enough time to keep it going. But what I will say is thank you all for being part of the shenanigans known as the Sports Senseis Unleashed on this day.
Thank you, guys. Oh my gosh. I thoroughly enjoyed this, man. Thank you. Man, I need to do more of these types of things with you. Goodness gracious.
I'm glad we could definitely have the fun out here today. Thank you all who've been watching live or tuning in via WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key. Thank you all out here. As we have been now put episode 34 in the books, we only have one more thing left to do, and that is look at one badass outro by the man on my side right here, Cole Johnson. Everybody, as always, stay safe out here in these streets. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.